And speaking of lots of horsepower, one of the most popular breeds of race car in motorsports, these are funny cars. The plastic-bodied, supercharged, alcohol-burning machines. It'll be Richard Bell, the number 5 qualifier at 6.62 seconds. And he will be racing Herb Rogers, the first time he has ever qualified for an important NHRA national event at 6.91 seconds. So these are 200-mile-an-hour rockets as well. New Hampshire's Richard Bell in the near lane, the far lane, a Canadian driver. That's Herb Rogers, and Rogers moves too soon. A red light, he's disqualified. But I tell you, Richard Bell's not taking it easy. He might not have seen the red light in the other lane, but we see it on the Christmas tree starting system right now. So Bell advances into round number 2 with his Pontiac Trans Am, and we're set for our next pairing, Brock.
And it's a big one, Steve. We've got Bob Gottschalk, the world champion, in that yellow car. That's an 82 Citation. I'd recognize it anywhere, I think. And that's Fred Hagen in the far lane.
They do kind of look alike, don't they? Hagen's a 41-year-old garage owner from the Chicago area. You find a lot of alcohol funny cars in that region of the country. And this is the world champ. Bobby Gottschalk qualified number 2 with a very quick 6.51 second elapsed time. While they're backing up these funny cars after the burnout, let's go down to the turnoff where Brock is with Richard Bell.
Dick, congratulations.
Thank you.
687-205.
That's not bad. Had a little bit of tire shake, though. Gonna have to do a little work on the clutch, and we'll be back for the next one.
Okay, well, good luck on the next one.
Thank you.
Well, hoping that he also will be back for the next one is the world champ Bob Gottschalk, the yellow car here. I had a chance to talk to Bob before the race about his strategy here in the first round. Well, Bob Gottschalk, last year you won the world championship, and now you've got to re-earn that number 1 spot.
I think we can still hold on. We're doing pretty good here. We're qualified number 2.
All right, tell me about the fellow you're going to race, and how's that going to go?
Fred Hagen is a pretty good running car. He runs out of a lot of circuit races and runs out of the Chicago area. He's probably got one of the best cars in that area.
All right. Fred Hagen's showing some real strength. Looks like Gottschalk may have his hands full, Steve.
But look at Bob fly on the other end as he runs away from Hagen. I don't like the look of that smoke out of the engine, though. 6.66 seconds, 196 miles an hour. Not a very good speed. There may be some serious problems internally in the world champion's car.
You know, Steve, drag racing is deceivingly simple. A lot of people think that longer races are more complex, but they're not. It's just that all this action of a big, long race is condensed down into a matter of a few milliseconds.
One half of our next pairing is going to be Bob Elliott, one of 2 Canadian drivers to make this 16-car field, driving a Dodge Charger 2.2. Opposite him will be Joe Camella, qualified number 15 at a not very quick 7.07 with his Corvette from Parma, Ohio. Before Joe Camella crawled into this dazzling-looking black Corvette, had a chance to talk to him about his role here really as an underdog up against Elliott. Joe, you're not the quickest qualifier in the field, to be sure, number 15. Does that put a little extra pressure on you to really leave on time, try to get the advantage off the starting line?
Oh, yeah, it definitely does, yeah, sure. It takes a little pressure off of him because he knows I'm not doing that well, but it gives me a little advantage there, too, because he's confident that he's going to beat me.
Did your guys work all night trying to get you some more horsepower?
Oh, yeah, we've been working on it, yeah. Camshaft change, and we made a bunch of changes to it. I hope that really works out.
Well, we're going to find out right now because Bob Elliott's going to be quite a test for Joe Camella. Elliott in the Northern Force car, inching into stage. Camella also allowing his car to just creep forward. They're ready. We've got a green light start, and Camella is right there with Elliott. Camella is making a race out of this. Elliott all over the racetrack. How about it? Camella's guys did find some horsepower overnight as he improves tremendously, and we've got some oily tires here. Apparently the engine exploding, and but coming to a safe stop is Bob Elliott. No harm, no foul. You wonder how some of these drivers even see out of these.
Wally knew there was a growing number of speed-hungry street riders with no place to race. These were everyday men and women who just enjoyed fast cars, high-performance engines, and the thrill of competitive racing. By starting the NHRA, Wally was able to offer these people a safe place to race, off the streets and on the drag strip. And at the same time, he made drag racing a true spectator sport. Over the years, the NHRA has grown to become the largest sanctioning body in the world with more than 37,000 members from all 50 states and many foreign countries. As the sport evolved, an elite group of professional drivers and race teams has emerged. And last year, more than 500,000 spectators attended the 11 NHRA national events. But even with all the glory surrounding the professional racers, the real backbone of the NHRA are still the sportsman racers. The working men and women like those Wally remembers from 1951, who enjoy drag racing as a hobby as well as a sport. These drivers aren't after the big money purses. For them, the real thrill is the pride of owning and building a high-performance race car, the camaraderie, and the competition of heads-up drag racing. It's these everyday people that make the NHRA great, and thanks to Wally Parks, they now have a safe place to race. Stick around, and a little while later, I'll get a chance to talk to him. But for now, it's back to the strip. Fellas?
Thank you, Ed, and we're happy to give the spotlight to the sportsman racers such as these alcohol funny car competitors. Brock, we've got another international confrontation here. In the far lane is Barry Patton from Nova Scotia.
Yeah, he's a 39-year-old airline captain, which is kind of a unique occupation in this field. Barry out of Waverly, Nova Scotia, way up north. He's running an 83 Cavalier-bodied alcohol funny car. There's Don Gerardo. He's a familiar name in this sport. He's a speed equipment manufacturer in his 83 Camaro. Keith Black engine in that one, Steve.
Gerardo is a former national champion, a former world champion. Here you see him pumping that hand brake, just inching that car forward to stage it. In the opposite lane is the gentleman from Nova Scotia. They're up right together. The Canadian hanging in there in the far lane, but Gerardo just out-muscles him on the top end of the racetrack. Boy, I'll say 659 at 210 miles an hour, but trailing an awful lot of oily-looking smoke. May have heard some pistons in that aluminum motor. So it's a long trip back to Nova Scotia for Barry Patton.
And we've got another pair staging at Pat, the Mouse Walsh from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, closest to us. And in the red car, Phil Cerrone in an 83 Omni-bodied automobile, Steve.
Now, the crewman here is performing an important function, Brock, backing that car up in exactly the same tracks that it burned out. That's the purpose of the burnout, is to heat up the tires and also to put down some hot, sticky rubber to improve the racetrack. So the burnout's useless if you don't back up properly. Phil Cerrone backed up properly in qualifying to a 6.61 elapsed time to match up with Pat Walsh's 6.87. So it's Walsh who may well be gambling on a hole shot, playing those lights just as hard as he can. Here we look right down the barrel of the fuel injection, bolted to the supercharger, which is belt-driven at almost 50% faster than the engine speed. So if the engine's turning 8,000 in the lights, the supercharger is probably turning about 12.
Walsh's car carries a Rodec block in his, while the Cerrone car's got a Keith Black engine. A lot of Keith Black engines in this class, Steve.
A very popular engine in the supercharged ranks. A tremendous start by both drivers. Pat Walsh in the near lane, Phil Cerrone in the far lane. It is Walsh by just a little over a car length. 6.91 seconds at exactly 200 miles an hour, using both chutes and added safety precaution. So Walsh will be around the stage for the second round. And we move on in alcohol funny car competition.
And we've got Lou Winters out of Cleveland, Tennessee, in the Cherokee Warrior against Eric Caskey, Hilton Head, South Carolina, the Raging Bull.
Lou Winters playing peekaboo with our camera here, his head sticking through the escape hatch in the roof of the car, as you said, out of Cleveland, Tennessee. His opponent, Eric Caskey, is a restaurant owner, driving a Dodge Challenger, and he just did make this field in that last available spot, number 16. So it's Caskey in the far lane. It'll be Lou Winters in the near lane.
You know, Steve, I think people may misunderstand a funny car in that you don't have to have the bodies match the engines. They can be anything you want. Run what you brung.
As long as it's got alcohol in the tank and nothing more than alcohol, you're okay. 1,500 horsepower these supercharged engines develop, and it is Lou Winters in the near lane. In the far lane is Eric Caskey, and it's a good race till half track when something apparently goes wrong with Eric Caskey's car. Lou Winters probably never saw him all the way down the racetrack. At 670, 206 miles an hour for Winters.
Okay, and we see the rear end of Rex Stevens' car, and a very familiar little statement up there. He who snoozes, loses. That's certainly a reference to that, using that Christmas tree lighting system. If you blink an eye, you lose, Steve.
Rex Stevens is a rookie in this alcohol funny car competition, but not so in the far lane. It's this man, Gary Henderson. He's won a lot of important races, qualified well at a 6:57 for the Tennessee driver, and one of the prettiest cars in the sport. Rex Stevens, get this, Yates, is from Oblong, Illinois.
As opposed to Parallelogram or Triangle, Illinois, where one of my hometowns. But, yeah, he's in an 83 Challenger bodied car, 29 years old. He's a mechanic. He's up against a very tough man with Gary Henderson and the Wizard.
And Henderson can be a wizard on the lights, but not this time. Rex Stevens may have moved first, but to no avail as he gets too close to the center line. If you cross that center line, you can be disqualified. So he eased up on the throttle, and it cost him. Gary Henderson takes the wizard into round 2 at 6:58, well over 200 miles an hour.
This is WSJT-TV, Vineland.
Frank Manzo out of Morganville, New Jersey, an 82 Trans Am. Runner-up in the world last year, #1 qualifier here at the Gator Nationals. He's up against Bogey Cal out of Adela, Alabama. Steve had a chance to talk to him both earlier.
Frank Manzo, you're the #1 qualifier among the alcohol funny cars. Some say that's a jinx to be #1.
Well, last year I qualified #1 most of the time, and I did okay. I like being #1.
Do you worry sometimes when you run that quick and quicker than everybody else that maybe you're on the ragged edge? Is something going wrong?
Sometimes, yes, but this weekend I think we can go a little bit faster.
Tell me about your competition in the first round. How's this going to go?
Well, Bogey Kell got a good car. He's a good driver, and you never know what could happen out there. It's, you know, it'll be a good drag race.
All right, you're racing the #1 qualifier. This isn't going to be an easy one.
It's not. They all, you know, pretty hard. Manzo, he's tough. It's a tough field here. He's one of the best, and now's the time for us to step up. When you get a guy like him, see.
You're going to try to leave on him, is what you're telling me, huh?
That's right. Cut a good light on him. Step this thing up. I'll surprise him.
Well, Bogey's going to step it up on old Frank, he says, and he's going to have to do that because Manzo is one of the toughest alcohol funny car drivers in the business. So as they're staging, we'll watch this thing go, Steve. Taking another brief little burnout is Frank Manzo behind the starting line, just again trying to get the tires clean. There you get a look at the butterfly-style steering wheel, the handbrake with a fancy wooden handle, and that was the parachute release that was mounted to the brake handle. Bogey Kell formerly campaigned an alcohol dragster. In fact, about 3 years ago, he won this very race, the Gator Nationals. So we got two very experienced drivers here. Manzo happens to be a little bit quicker in qualifying, but as we've seen earlier with the alcohol dragsters, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a sure winner. Well, let's see if he can do what he hopes to do, and that's step up. And the Southerner, Bogey Kell from Alabama, New Jersey driver Frank Manzo. Quite a contrast between these two drivers. Not only just in accent, but in driving style and their approach to the mechanical end of the sport. And they leave right together. Manzo in the near lane. Bogey Kell is falling back. It is Frank Manzo. But I guarantee you, he can hear Bogey Kell back there about a car length. We'll be back with more alcohol dragster and funny car competition here at the Gator Nationals. Steve Evans with Brock Yates and Ed Bruce. We're back again in Gainesville, Florida for the annual Gator Nationals drag races. Frank Manzo just set low ET among the alcohol funny car drivers, and Brock is with him now.
Back in fifth, folks. Race time for the professional category. Hey, Ace, good job. Low ET.
Thank you.
649, 213.
Thank you very much. A little nervous. First round jitters. Very nervous.
For what reason?
Well, it's the first race of the year, and we've been here 5 years in a row. Never got down the track first round. Always qualified good. Never be able to get down the track first round.
Making up for a lot of lost time then.
Oh, that's why I was so nervous.
Good job.
Thank you.
So Manzo's victory completes the first round. Let's take a look at second round pairings among the alcohol funny cars. That man Manzo versus Bell. It'll be Gary Henderson up against Joe Camella. Bobby Gottschalk will race Don Gerardo. And it'll be Walsh versus Winters. We've seen the dragsters, we've seen the funny cars. Now we're going to shift gears in our competition. Ed Bruce explains.
One of the more popular classes is the Super Gas category. The reason for the popularity is the wide variety of cars that run. I'm standing next to a 27T Roadster. And when this car races, it might line up against another Model T Roadster, or a chopped and channeled street cruiser from the 50s, or a pickup truck, or even a brand new Corvette. This is a wide open class, and since there are no rules on cars retaining their stock appearance, there's no telling what'll come to the line. To make the competition in this class fair, the NHRA has set certain restrictions, such as no superchargers and no nitrous fuels. These cars must run on gas or methanol. But the really interesting rule in Super Gas is the 990 limit on elapsed time. Any car which has an ET lower than 99 loses the race. If both cars break out or run less than 99, the slower car wins. At first, you might think this is a strange way to run a drag race, but it really helps the drivers control costs and promotes close racing. You see, once a driver gets his car in shape to run a 99, he no longer has to worry about spending time and money improving the engine's performance. The driver can now concentrate on driving skills and getting creative with the car's looks. And that's the real beauty of Super Gas. And if you're still concerned that 99 isn't fast enough, when these cars get to the end of that quarter-mile track, they're doing around 140 miles per hour, and that's moving.
Well, Ed, they may not be the fastest cars in drag racing, but with their short wheelbases, they can be very difficult to drive, and trouble can happen at any moment, as we saw in Super Gas qualifying when Mickey Thompson took this machine for 5 barrel rolls, Brock Yates.
Plenty dangerous, but also plenty safe because of good, solid NHRA safety construction rules, Steve.
We're going to pick up Super Gas competition in the 4th round. We actually started with some 64 qualifiers, and that's been pared way down at this point.
And here comes John Hobel out of Cincinnati, Ohio, Steve, in the red 78 Mustang. He's running a 316-inch Chevy engine in that car.
And his opponent is going to be Mike Mazza. Mike from Mount Vernon, Ohio. Mike is a restaurant owner wheeling a 77 Vega.
John Hobel is an electrician by trade and pretty typical of the amateur sportsmen that run in the Super Gas category.
Hobel's 78 Mustang, too. Well, it'll look like a Ford to the fans, but it's got a Chevrolet motor under the hood.
Again, the only qualifying component of these cars is that they have stock appearing bodies of any vintage and that they run in that 990 breakout category.
And they also perform the burnout ritual, Brock, but they're not allowed to go over the starting line. So they just sit back in the water. They have independent front brakes that they can push a button and electronically hold the brakes while they spin the huge rear slicks to get them good and hot and clean, as Mike Mazza is first to stage. So Mazza in the far lane, the near lane. John Hobel. We're in Super Gas competition, the first we've seen of it today.
Mazza carries the front wheels away from the lights. Good close race, Steve Evans.
That's right, and they're racing the clock as well. Remember that 990. Oh, Mike Mazza gets there first at a 989, 130 miles an hour. Now that's under the 990, but Hobel ran even further under the 990, so Mazza advances.
And the next race, Paul Reinford in a 65 Corvette versus Linwood Kraft in a 75 Colt.
Linwood is a 43-year-old mechanic from Hollins, Vermont, and he has one of the toughest cars in the class to drive because it has a very short wheelbase and a very big engine. Paul Reinford, his competition, 41-year-old garage proprietor. They call him Moose. That's a pretty 65 Corvette he's driving with a 350 Chevrolet motor.
They're really interesting cars as a class, Steve. Exactly how much would a man have to spend to get one of these ready to race?
How much have you got? Anywhere from $2,000, $3,000 up to $25,000, depending on the caliber of machine you want to compete with.
So the secret is to get down there in no less than 990. Got to feather-foot it, Steve.
That's part of the game, and Linwood Kraft does it nicely. He is closer to 990 with his 989. And our next pair will feature Johnny LeBeau from Rome, Georgia, up against Doug Kirk. Doug Kirk is only 19 years of age out of Kermit, West Virginia, with a very nice 81 Camaro, the big block Chevrolet, over 450 inches. His opponent is Johnny LeBeau from Rome, Georgia, 36-year-old speed shop owner. He's got another one of those hard-to-drive short wheelbase Dodge Omnis with a 440 motor. This is LeBeau right here.
Just all engine. Steve, that is a bunch of engine for a little tiny car to be carrying. Of course, it's running. The Omni is a front-wheel drive car. Normally, that's a rear-drive setup in that automobile.
Absolutely right. So, you know, reaction time is maybe more important here than it is in the heads-up non-breakout categories. Because if you can cut a better light, you got a little more cushion at the other end to play with that throttle. Getting awfully close to the center line is Doug Kirk, but he gets it back into his own lane, and from behind, nope, it is Kirk. Kirk there first, but he does not win. Johnny LeBeau with a 978 is closer to the 990. So for Doug Kirk in the red Camaro, it's back to Kermit, West Virginia. But at 19, he'll have a lot more fun in this sport.
So we've had breakouts in the first 3 races. Let's see how Deep Buckner and Steve Cohen do in the next race. Steve Buckner is a 30-year-old full-time drag racer from Kennersville, North Carolina. He's got a 355 cubic inch Chevrolet in that 64 Corvette, Steve.
He's racing this guy, Steve Cohen from Clearwater, Florida. He's got kind of a rare car, a 68 AMX. Remember those from the American Motors Corporation, Brock? But this has got an almost 500 cubic inch Chevrolet motor in it.
Yes, sir, and a good, strong, solid race. Boy, we've had really close racing in all these Super Gas races so far, Steve.
And in the far lane, it is Steve Cohen there first. That's the perfect run. A 990, you can't do it any better than that, Brock. Steve Cohen hits that magic number. He's going to love that time slip when he gets it.
Let's have another look at this race. Almost a classic Super Gas drag race, Steve.
You bet it is. Wheels up action. The fans love these cars. They can identify with them. There's a lot of fans for the Corvette. I don't know how many they have for the vintage 68 AMX.
More than they did now that he won one. But right down, just a matter of inches. Look at that.
So only 4 cars remain now, and in the semifinals, it'll be Cohen versus LeBeau. The other half of the semis in a matter of a very few minutes. The engines almost have zippers on them. They come apart very quickly. They can pound in new pistons in a matter of just a very few minutes. Don Woosley in the far lane getting set to face off with Troy Buff. Woosley, a former national record holder, has won a half a dozen major races in the National Hot Rod Association competition. And here is Troy. His father drove this car up until this year, and there's talk that even his younger sister may eventually take the wheel of the car. So the alcohol dragster ranks starting to fill up with young drivers, and then that's a healthy sign as the second-generation kids move into this sport, and the fathers take the roles of crew chiefs. And another sister backing up her brother, Troy Buff.
Troy Buff's car is running an engine built by the Arias people in California. It's based on a 427 Chevy block. The Woosley car's got a Keith Black engine, one of the most famous names in all motorsports. Both those blocks are modified, Steve, especially for drag racing. They got the water passages blocked off because they don't need that kind of cooling, and they're especially strengthened internally for taking the kind of stresses that these automobiles put on them. But they're a special breed of engine you'll just find in drag racing, right?
And they're very strong to withstand the high RPMs at the start. It is Don Woosley, the veteran, off first. He used Troy Buff in the starting line a bit. His experience pays off as Woosley, with a terrific 642 at 213 miles an hour. The car in the far lane is victorious over young Troy Buff. Well, it doesn't take him long to get the next pair lit up. It'll be the Evil Spirit car in the near lane. That is Al DiPozo. And his competition will be Bruce Horner. Horner over in the far lane. Bruce bouncing to a stop on those low air pressure rear tires. Brock Yates is at the end of the track with Don Woosley.
Don, good job. 642, 213. You take it?
Yeah.
How'd you run?
Well, it surprised me. We broke a motor the first round. I put an old junk head on it, but evidently it worked.
You gonna have to stay with that head for the next round, too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all we got, so that's what we got to use.
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Woosley's starting to show the pressure, the strain of competition, running short of parts, and maybe even patience. And he's got just a few minutes to fix this car to get it back in the staging lanes. If he doesn't show up, he would be disqualified. Now, disqualified because he lost fire is Bruce Horner. The engine died at the end of the burnout. And this is something you will see happen occasionally. If the driver stops the car too quickly, which Horner might have done, the fuel tends to want to run away from the high-pressure pump, and no fuel goes to the motor. Consequently, the fire goes out. So for Al DiPozo, it's a gift here in the second round. DiPozo in the near lane. And this is the second single run DiPozo from Northbrook, Illinois has had today. John Samalik lost fire against Al in the initial round. Now, Al qualified number 2 with a fine 643, but all he technically has to do here is get from the starting line to the finish line, just to keep wear and tear equal for all concerned. But I have a feeling that you'll see him make a full pass. They almost always will, just to make sure they still have the combination. So a very dejected Bruce Horner being pushed back towards the pit area where he'll load that car up and get ready for the next race on down the road. Al DiPozo holding that handbrake. The car straining against the brakes on 1,500 horsepower, and absolutely Al DiPozo is going to run at the full 1,320 feet with a 6.51 at 213 miles an hour. So even though he's had 2 gifts, he's still made 2 very strong runs.
There's such a brutal finality about this sport, Steve. Here comes old Bruce Horner all the way down from Bergenfield, New Jersey. Loses fire at the starting line, never even really rolls a wheel. He's gone, he's out, he's finished.
Well, Brock, you remember how excited Mike Koski was after round 1? Well, here he is again. From Cuddy, Pennsylvania, Koski in the near lane. His competition will be a tough Texan, Buddy Domingue. But first, it's Koski coming into the water for the burnout. Look how the tires distort and grow on that burnout. Before we get to this race, as they're backing up, Brock Yates is down at the end of the track with Al DiPozo.
Well, 6:51, 2:13. What do you think?
That'll be all right.
Did you let it all out? Did you run a little easier?
Run it a lot easier. We burned a piston the last run. We thought it'd be all right. We burned a piston the last run. So we figured we'd just kind of save it since we got a lucky break.
Well, you got a good round. You gonna think she ran good? No problem?
Oh, yeah. She seemed good now. Now we've got a little oil leak here, but I think we'll fix that pretty quick.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Even though he hasn't had to race anybody, he's still burning pistons. Just part of the game these days, the tremendous strain on these high compression motors. Mike Koski near lane, the red, white, and blue car. Buddy Domingue here in the far lane from Groves, Texas. Domingue with the Arius motor, a little over 400 cubic inches. Mike Koski, the Keith Black style, late model Hemi. Domingue brings the RPMs up, as does Mike Koski. And away first is Buddy Domingue. Mike Koski with the wheels in the air trying to catch him. And Domingue breaks something in the drivetrain. The rear end, the transmission, something went away. Mike Koski comes from behind at 6:54, 187 miles an hour. And Koski also, it looked like he had some supercharger problems right in the lights. Let's look again. Look at Koski here in the near lane. The wheels start to go skyward. He stays with it, finally, probably lifted off the throttle a little bit to settle it back down. Now he's pedal to the metal trying to catch Buddy Domingue. Domingue's drivetrain breaks, and by him like a shot comes Mike Koski. Mike is feeling like a winner here, but his problems aren't over. Watch. That puff of smoke comes out of the supercharger or the manifold. He may have some problems. Brock's with him.
6:54, Mike.
Okay.
What do you think? You hurt bad or not?
No, I don't think so. Just as long as the manifold can be fixed, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just move it forward a couple inches.
No, I had a back pedal, and that's when she let go.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was about 4 foot in the air, about all the way through first gear. I don't know if you've seen it down here.
Oh, we couldn't see it, but it sounded pretty hairy.
Oh, well.
You're going to be okay.
I think so. All right. We're going to try.
Probably felt like 4 feet in the cockpit. Here's the pairings for the semis. Mike Koski against Bubba Sewell. Aldo Pozo races Don Woosley.
And more top alcohol funny car action as we see Joe Camella out of Parma, Ohio, stage his 81 Corvette. He'll be running against Gary Henderson out of Memphis, Tennessee, in an 83 Omni with a Keith Black engine in it. Steve Evans.
This is second-round competition. What a beautiful car. The Wizard, owned by Tom Ockers. Very creative paint design, always immaculate. The polished supercharger. And away first is Henderson. Camella is into the guardrail. Just grazes it, keeps the car right side up. Gary Henderson, who had a tremendous reaction on the starting line. And I think Camella was having problems steering the car. When they leave the starting line, oftentimes they'll carry the front wheels just a little bit off the pavement. There's very little weight on them. And even though Joe was steering hard to the left, the car at this point just has a mind of its own. Maybe a pound or two more air pressure in one tire than the other causes it to go to the right. And even though Camella steers to the left and his foot's still on the throttle, boom, into the guardrail. But the fiberglass bodies are pretty easily fixed. And coming out of the car is the victorious Gary Henderson after a fine 6:55. Brock is there.
We got you at 6:55, 2:10. About what you expected?
Yeah, that was a little bit better. I'm hoping to pick it up a little bit more. I'm bringing the motor up a little bit now. The track's getting a little better up there.
How is the track feeling after the run?
Super.
Does it?
Them guys in front of me, I believe they're going to lose the soles off their shoes up there next.
Okay. You got a little oil in there. Any problems at all, real?
No, it's got a little bit of blow by, and without the outside breathers, you know, it just kind of blows out. So it's no problem, no.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay.
Gary wasn't kidding either. We've seen a lot of shoes stuck to this starting line throughout the weekend. Here is Don Gerardo, a former world champion. He's up against the yellow car in the left or far lane, the reigning world champion. That is Bobby Gottschalk driving the Bob Schmidt Chevrolet Entry. Now, last year, Gottschalk accumulated more points on the circuit than any other driver, and he proudly wears that number 1 on the side of his car. It's been a number of years since Don Gerardo was world champion, but he has still been very competitive on the circuit. And away first is Bob Gottschalk in the far lane, the yellow car. Gerardo challenging, but he doesn't have enough muscle. On the far end of the racetrack, it is Bob Gottschalk at a 6.62. That's really a little off the pace for the world champ at 206 miles an hour. And back at the starting line, already rolling into the water to start the burnout procedure is Lou Winters. Lou will be up against Pat Walsh. This is the furthest either of these drivers have ever gone in big-time competition. Brock is with the world champ.
Last time we saw you had some problems to get it all fixed, huh?
Yeah, we had to change the piston and do a couple valves. I think we're in there.
You feeling good now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Feeling great.
Car running strong?
Sounds good to me.
How's the racetrack?
A little shaky. Not bad. Not bad.
All right, thanks.
By shaky, he meant tire shake or car shake, and sometimes that comes from having too good a racetrack. So it is Pat Walsh in the U.S. mail car in the far lane up against the beautiful red machine of Lou Winters. One of these drivers will advance to the semifinals as they bring the RPMs up. They have to change gears twice down the racetrack, but it's a simple matter of pushing a button with these type of transmissions. Lou Winters launches harder. Pat Walsh trying to stay with him in the far lane, but can't do it. It is Lou Winters all the way at 6.70. Lou's going to have to find a couple of tenths of a second if he's going to be competitive in the semis. 2 tenths in this sport is 4 or 5 car lengths. We've seen 40s and 50s. That is the pace. Frank Manzo, the number 2 car in the world, will soon be punishing those rear tires with the burnout, laying down some hot, sticky rubber as he hopes to defeat Richard Bell and the Bell Boys from Nashua, New Hampshire, the yellow car in the far lane. Right now, Brock Yates is with Lou Winters.
Okay, Lou, got 672.07. Feeling good? Car run good?
Yeah, it run real good. We got a little bit of shake, but I think we can get it back on it.
All right. I hope. Okay, good job.
Thank you.
That hatch, you see Lou Winters sticking his head through, is mandatory in this kind of competition. An escape hatch should the driver have some problems with fire or whatever. The Bell Boys. This is by far the best they have done in national event competition, but they're up against one of the best, and they know it. Frank Manzo here in the near lane. A pair of Easterners hoping to get to the semifinals. Staging very, very carefully, staring a hole in the Christmas tree starting system. They'll see a flash of yellow and hammer the pedal as hard as they can. It is Frank Manzo. Manzo running away from Richard Bell. Bell is not in the same race with the ace. Frank Manzo at 650, 214 miles an hour, and he is assured of a berth in the semifinal round. And here's how it stacks up. That man, Frank Manzo, against Gary Henderson and the Wizard. The other half of the semifinals will be Bob Gottschalk, the world champ, against the dark horse Lou Winters when we at the Gatornationals in Gainesville, where the alcohol dragsters are getting ready for semifinals competition. Brock Yates is in the pit area with Al DiPozo.
Al, last time I talked to you, the blower was about to fall off the back of the old car. Did you get everything put back on?
Oh, yeah, that old Chevy's, you don't know the difference.
Probably run as good without it, huh?
Yeah, we're going to put a fresh one on right now, and we'll see what happens. It's a good race right now. It's coming up against us and Woosley.
Yeah.
So we're going to put everything in it.
What'd you do? Did you shear some bolts off of that all in half?
It looks like the front seal in the front of the blower has let the oil drain inside the blower.
Okay.
So that's why it slowed down a little bit.
But you're feeling good. You got everything buttoned up now?
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Another 10 minutes, we'll be ready.
All right. Well, good luck. Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Sure.
So while the crew concentrates on the engine and the supercharger, Al DiPozo himself will take care of the all-important transmission maintenance. Just a few trailers down from Al is Bubba Sewell, the 19-year-old kid from Texas. That's his dad giving him a hand as they have got this engine just about back together. Bubba is only 2 win lights away from what could be his first ever national event victory. Ed Bruce is with a special guest. In fact, the man that invented this sport.
With me now is the president and founder of the National Hot Rod Association, Mr. Wally Parks. Mr. Parks, nice to see you, sir.
Thank you.
I know there are a lot of levels of competition in drag racing. How did the alcohol cars develop?
Actually, it developed as a part of the evolution of the sport. It started out purely as a gasoline-powered, street-driven type of thing, but as the cars were looking for more and more horsepower, the builders were on the thing. They came up with what they considered to be exotic fuel, and alcohol was the one that came into being.
But it seems to me that the intensity of the competition is at least equal to that of the pros. It carries over into the expertise of the crews and even sometimes the sophistication of the cars. Do the alcohol cars sometimes serve as a stepping stone to the pros?
They definitely do that. They're just as tricky to build and require just as much expertise as far as the construction of the car and the handling of the car. Costs a little bit less, and we've got some very successful professional racers now that have come out of the alcohol ranks.
Mr. Parks, thanks for taking the time to talk to us, and congratulations on building a great racing organization.
Thank you for being with us.
Let's go back to the track for more racing.
All right, thank you, Ed and Wally. Wally Parks, certainly one of the most respected men in American motorsports. Brock?
No question about it. And here we have Linwood Kraft out of Hollands, Vermont against Mike Mazza, Mount Vernon, Ohio, restaurant owner in his 77 Vega.
This is the semifinals of Super Gas competition, and we'll remind you again that not only do they race each other, but they race the clock. You cannot run quicker than 9:90, or that is the magic number, the perfect number, a 9.90, which Mike Mazza was able to do in the preceding round.
It's interesting that Kraft has almost 100 more cubic inches in that little Dodge Colt than Mazza has.
He could have 400 more, Brock, and it wouldn't matter because that 990 is the great equalizer. Typically close Super Gas competition as they near the finish line. The win computer says it's Kraft getting there first, but he runs too quick. Mike Mazza in the far lane wins it at 993, 129 miles an hour. He will go into the final round to come.
And the last pair in the Super Gas semifinal, Steve Cohen, 68 AMX, Johnny LeBeau, 80 Dodge Omni.
Brock, there's a problem with Cohen. He has overstaged the American Motors car. I think his brakes have failed. He could not hold it on the starting line. There is a foul start resulting. He is out of competition. It will be in the tower lane, Johnny LeBeau. Now, he runs a 9:59, but he's not disqualified because the race was over when the red light happened. Here's how it sets up in the Super Gas final, Mazza versus LeBeau. We'll be back with that and also alcohol, dragster, and funny car semis after this.
Like drag racing in Gainesville, Florida? Ask these people as they watch more action at Gator Nationals.
We're set for the semifinals in the alcohol dragster competition, and they have good reason to be excited, Brock. We've got two perfectly matched competitors. This is Don Woosley of Winchester, Kentucky, backing up after the burnout, taking instructions from his crew. The people outside the car can be almost as important as the driver sometimes. Woosley getting ready to race Al DePozo. DePozo is in the far lane with that Chevrolet car. He got the supercharger back on it. Everything in good shape. No smoke out of either engine. They appear to be in good condition. DePozo right here. Woosley in the near lane, the yellow car. A starting line advantage could be all important here. Both drivers looking for the hole shot as they bring the RPMs up to about 9,000. They're gone, and up in the air goes DePozo. He is sideways. Whoa! Some kind of drag race, and it's too close, really, to call with the naked eye. The electronic win computer gives it to Woosley in the near lane. But I tell you, the driving job of the day, Brock Yates, has got to go to that man in the far lane, Al DePozo.
Yeah, he had a wheel stand, then he got the car sideways, then he blew the motor. Imagine what might have happened had everything gone right for him.
I tell you, see how high this front end comes up? They have what they call wheelie bars at the back of the car. Were it not for the wheelie bars, DePozo might have stood straight up like a telephone pole. But then his problems are compounded. He is sideways first one way, then the other, but the one thing he never does is take his foot off the throttle. And I guarantee you, Woosley, his peripheral vision, he can see DePozo right now. DePozo making a move on him, and at the finish line, we see how close it really is. Woosley wins at 6:45 to a 6:52. Brock Yates is with the winner, Don Woosley.
A winner, but a little problem coming out of it, huh?
Yeah, I lost the motor.
How much time you got to get it ready?
I don't have another motor, so I'm, for all intents and purposes, out of it.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it is.
Super strong run until it went up.
Yeah, I felt it going away in high gear, but stayed in it, and that was the results.
You got to pack it up?
Yeah, guess we will.
We're sorry.
Unless somebody can loan us a motor.
Well,
which I doubt.
You going back and try?
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
But I don't look good right now. We just have to wait till we get back and see.
Hard going out a winner, isn't it? I mean, this way, yeah.
It's a bad way to lose.
Yeah. Well, we're real sorry. Super race all day.
Thank you.
Well, you got to feel for that man, Brock. He won the battle, but may have lost the war. But, you know, you ask him if he could borrow an engine. You'll find often in this situation, when he gets back to the pit, there's liable to be 3 or 4 other competitors waiting for him at his trailer to volunteer an engine. But whether it's right, whether it'll fit this car, or if he wants to go through that, remains to be seen. But he's liable to make it back to the final. We'll find out. No matter what happens, this driver will be in the final. It is Bubba Sewell from Texas. Now, Mike Koski, who is scheduled to be Bubba's opponent, as you can see, is not in the other lane. Apparently, they discovered more engine problems than they originally thought between rounds and have had to park that car. Bubba Sewell's sister, total concentration as she backs her brother up, hoping that he's going to win his first ever national championship race here today. Now, Bubba's engine not looking all of that healthy. A little bit of smoke starting to come from some of the pipes. There's no way he can be defeated here. All he's got to do is stage and get the car to the end of the racetrack. And now quite a bit of smoke coming out of that right bank. Maybe some of the pistons not in the greatest of shape. Some oil blowing by the rings. Right now, Bubba is just concentrating, looking down that ribbon of asphalt. And remains to be seen if he takes it easy or not. He could idle down at 5 miles an hour or 200 miles an hour. It's his decision at this point. Bubba Sewell goes into the final round, where hopefully he'll race Don Woosley if Woosley can find another motor. Bubba leaves the starting line as hard as he can. Bubba Sewell a little out of the groove, and Bubba gets off the throttle to save what he's got left with a 667 at only 172 miles an hour. So the alcohol final should be Bubba Sewell and Don Woosley will be back with the funny car semifinal competition. The Gator Nationals as there is on the drag strip. Brock Yates is in the pits of alcohol dragster finalist Bubba Sewell.
Okay, Bubba, well, bring me up to date now. We're going into the finals. What do you got to do, and what do you face as far as the competition's concerned?
Well, they say Woosley's broke, so I don't know if he'll make it, but we're going to go all out and try for a 30. So it'd be all-out run.
So you got to make a pass, though, right?
We got to stage the car and make a pass. So
what happens if it breaks and you don't get through the full quarter mile?
Well, they say it's supposed to coast through or somehow or another. So I guess if you have to push, you have to push.
You're going for it, though.
Right. It'd be all-out run.
Okay. What did you finally break on it?
Well, it stripped the teeth on the blower belt, so that was what the problem was. It felt like a good run. As soon as I hit high gear, that stripped the teeth. It would have been another 40. So
okay.
It would have been.
You got no problems replacing that drive, though, huh?
Oh no, we're in good shape there. No problem.
Good, Bubba. Real good.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Brock, you can tell Bubba that he looks like the champ as Don Woosley has officially thrown in the towel. It'll be Bubba Sewell on a single, but he's going to go for it. One of those elusive 6:30 elapsed times. This is the semifinals among the alcohol funny cars. Number 1 in the world champ Bob Gottschalk. Gottschalk and Mahalko from Indiana, the yellow car in the near lane. Their competition is going to be in the left-hand lane, the Cherokee Warrior out of Cleveland, Tennessee, and driven by Lou Winters.
Steve, this is a classic David and Goliath matchup. Of course, Gottschalk being the champion, as you said. Lou Winters, really not a very consistent competitor. This is by far the highest he's gotten in major competition, but he was the 8th quickest qualifier, which means that he has shown some surprising strength this afternoon.
So Gottschalk putting more heat in the engine. Here you see the supercharger, the injector. In fact, you see the throttle linkage connected to the size 10 boot of Bob Gottschalk as he tries to keep that motor clean, revving it up as they approach the starting line. One of these drivers will go to the Gator Nationals finals. Gottschalk is off the mark first. Gottschalk in the Gottschalk engine explodes. Gottschalk is now coasting, but still he has enough momentum to get by Lou Winters. A 779 at only 123 miles an hour. Even still in the car, Gottschalk has got to be very concerned about that power plant in front of him.
Well, both cars had a lot of trouble, and we've had surprising amounts of engine problems in this funny car rounds, Steve.
More than I've seen in a long time. But this fella's had no problems whatsoever. Frank Monzo, the number 1 qualifier. He has low elapsed time in the event, has been the most consistent competitor in the category today. Now, he hopes to get to the final round, but first he'll have to defeat Gary Henderson in the Wizard car in the right lane. Brock is with Bob Gottschalk at the end of the track.
Bob, I hear you got some big problems.
We don't know. We don't see no holes in the side of it, so we got to get back and check it out.
What happened coming on the run?
Just quit running. Like magneto or something went away.
Maybe not too bad.
Well, let's hope not.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Well, the big question now is, are we going to have 2 bye runs, both in alcohol dragster and possibly in the funny car competition? But knowing Bobby Gottschalk, if there's any way possible to make it to the starting line, he'll be there. And he's going to race one of these cars. Either Gary Henderson in the beautiful Wizard car out of Memphis, Tennessee in the far lane, or Frank Monzo, who we talked about, the quickest car here today. Henderson taking his time, trying to collect his thoughts, concentrate on those beams when he gets up there. Try to pretend there's nobody in that other lane. Ask any good drag racer, and they'll tell you, I try to pretend there's nobody over there, that it's just me racing the lights and the clock. But sometimes that's impossible. You hear them, you see them, and occasionally you have to make some defensive maneuvers to avoid them. Frank Monzo wanted so badly to win the World Championship last year, and he missed it by just a very few points. So he has the number 2 on the side of his car. He may get a chance to race Bob Gottschalk, who carries that number 1. But first, Gary Henderson is in his way as they move to the starting line, the second half of the semifinals at the Gator Nationals. They move together. Monzo and Henderson, a good semifinal until something goes wrong with Henderson's car. It is all Frank Monzo. Another one of those great 6:40 elapsed times, a 6:46 to be exact. So it will be Frank Monzo versus Bob Gottschalk in the final round of the Alcohol Funny Car competition when we come back to Gainesville. In the stands for the final rounds of the annual Gator Nationals here in Gainesville, Florida. Before we get to the finals, Brock Yates is in the pit area with one of the Alcohol Funny Car drivers, Ace Monzo.
Ace, a few minutes left. Tell me what you're doing if you change anything to get the car ready for the last pass.
The car's pretty well ready. I made a pretty good clean pass. The car's not hurting anything, but my competition, Bob Gottschalk, had a little trouble on the previous run, and he won't be able to make it out to the final. So we'll be making a bye run for the win, but we're not going to, take it easy. We're going to make a little change on the car and try and make it go faster.
That's good. You may know that the guys in Alcohol Dragster, same thing happened, that Bubba Sewell's going to make a single too. So it's kind of ironic that the two alcohol classes both are making single runs.
Yeah, it's been a little tough on parts this weekend. We've been pretty lucky. And, the weekend went pretty good. We're pretty happy.
The key phrase there from Frank Monzo was make it go faster. It doesn't matter if there's anybody over there to beat or not. The drag racer always tries to make it go faster. But this is the final in Super Gas, and you can only go so quick. Remember that 990.
It's interesting, Steve, that we've seen an awful lot of different kinds of cars run in Super Gas, but the big favorites seem to be the new compacts and subcompact bodies. Nice small cars, short wheelbase, but monster motors underneath.
Boy, they are just obliterating the starting line with tire smoke as they get ready for this final. Mike Mazza will be in the Vega in the far lane. And I really feel, Brock, the car that he'll be racing is a little harder to drive just because of its wheelbase.
Yeah, it's a really short little automobile. Let's not forget that over 100 of these guys showed up to compete in the Gator Nationals. Now we're down to the final two.
As they move to the starting line, they push a little button on the shifter called the line lock that locks up the front brake so the car does not crawl and accidentally red light. Johnny LeBeau looks over at Mike Mazza as if to say, come on, I'm ready. Let's stage and get this over with.
Adrenaline levels running at about 7,000 RPM, just like the engines. Good, clean start, no red light. Classic Super Gas competition, just head-to-head, down toward the finish line. Looks like Mazza. Yes, those are his fans. They're happy. Mike Mazza's got to be happy. A nice, clean 994, 125 miles an hour, Steve.
Yeah, no breakout here. Just good, clean competition. Mike Mazza, let's see if we can see who leaves first. Maybe Mazza by a little bit, and that's so important in Super Gas. Now, as they get down towards the finish line, they start playing this brain game and have to get on and off the throttles to keep from breaking out. Brock is with the happy champion.
Hey, Mike. Just like electric, huh?
Yeah, buddy. This is 2 in a year.
I know. You're doing super. You just got that thing dialed in. Do you actually drive it, or does it just kind of run down like an electric train or something?
I'll tell you what. I couldn't deep stage for 2 years, and they beat me and beat me and beat me. Now we're playing my game. That's just the fact. Is that right or not?
Our congratulations to Super Gas champion Mike Mazza. Now, we told you we were going to have bye runs at Alcohol Dragster and Funny Car. Well, technically it is a bye run, but both competitors agreed to race each other to put on a show, kind of an exhibition, but they are already crowned as champions. Bubba Sewell right here will be the Alcohol Dragster champion of the Gators, and opposite him is Frank Monzo. He will be the Alcohol Funny Car champ, but they're going to have a race anyway. There's always a lot of good-natured banter between the dragsters and the funny cars as to which is the quickest. The funny car can be competitive with the dragster because they actually run a bigger cubic inch engine. So both of these drivers are champions. Bubba Sewell winning his first ever title. Frank Monzo winning about his 10th or 12th. Somewhere in there, he's been in the winner's circle a lot.
But they're still going to race very hard. A little smoke coming out of Bubba Sewell's engine, but doesn't seem to make any difference. He's out of the gate and running very strong. He's going to blow Frank Monzo off this time.
So Bubba Sewell puts a nice 653, 211-mile-an-hour capper on the day, and the 19-year-old collects his first NHRA major event trophy.
Bubba ran it hard. I don't think Frank Monzo was in it. He may have had some problems.
Brock, these guys they call sportsman drag racers gave us one heck of a show today, didn't they?
They sure did. Bubba Sewell was my favorite. You know, he came in here with his dad and his family, and he spent all afternoon with his face stuck in that engine. It was broken on every pass. They had problems. He came back and back and back. He never lost his good nature. He was just up all day for a 19-year-old kid. He really impressed me. And 6 times, as he told us, he's been a runner-up, and he never won one. And, well, I was just happy to see him do the job.
no happier than he was. And in funny car, of course, Frank Manzo, who was world champion 2 years ago, is number 2 in the alcohol funny car world right now from New Jersey. Won another one, very calm, very collected. In fact, just kind of mastered the class, didn't he?
Yeah, he really did. He didn't have any competition in the last run, and he still ran hard, tried hard, and he had problems in the course of the day, but never let him bother him. Just kept on coming.
Looked to me like you made a friend out of the Super Gas winner.
Yeah, well, old Mike Mazza, he'd never won anything before, and he's a classic drag racer. I mean, he came in here as an amateur, not expecting to win a lot of money. He didn't come in here with a big 18-wheeler, but he competed just as hard as everybody else, and it paid off for him.
You know, you drag racing fans out there, you know that there are nitro funny cars that go a little bit quicker and faster, and nitro dragsters that go a little bit quicker and faster. But I'll tell you what, if you hear them advertising these alcohol funny cars and dragsters at your local NHRA drag strip, you know now what kind of show these drivers and cars can put on. For Brock Yates, this is Steve Evans, and we'll go back to the Tennessee Cowboy, Mr. Ed Bruce.
We've had a great day of racing here at the Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida. As we've learned, drag racing has come a long way since the days people were just hot-footing it around town. If you get the urge to drag race, I hope you'll take the NHRA's advice and do it on the track. Right now, I'm going to get this baby back to his owner because he's wanting to go home, too. For Brock Yates and Steve Evans, I'm Ed Bruce. Have a good day.
The executive producer of Super Sports America is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John V. Mullen. Super Sports America. Sports action at its finest. Join us next week for another edition of Super Sports America, capturing the power, color, and action of uniquely American sports and the skill and the courage of the competitors. Super Sports America is a presentation of Diamond P Sports and is